Okay. Hi,
It seems like
Randall and Al.
a good amount of my teens are here. Good job.
Yeah, thanks everyone for being here. Hi, Jaime. Nice to see you. Ethan, we are in a webinar currently, so we can see you in the chat. And yeah, for anyone who's out there in the audience, please get in the chat in the Q&A, which is a little toggle down the bottom of the ribbon of your Zoom. You can kind of formally ask questions there. But yeah, 6:02. So why don't we get started? Cool. Hello, my name is Alex Bodo. I'm the program director at the Tenderloin Museum. The museum opened in 2015 with the mission of uncovering the lost history of the Tenderloin, as well as celebrating the vibrant present day community through historical exhibitions, an art gallery, walking tours, and weekly public programs. We're located at the corner of Eddy and Leavenworth in the heart of the TL, currently open from 10 to 5, Tuesday through Saturday. And on Saturdays at 1 p.m., we offer a historical walking tour of the neighborhood with the one and only Pam Coates. You can check out tenderloinmuseum.org to learn more and plan your visit. We're also streaming concurrently to YouTube. We host a bunch of our past public programs on YouTube and hope to do more of that in the future. So if you are watching there now or are interested in other past programs, please subscribe. That really helps us out. And tonight we have a virtual town hall for the AAPI community in the Tenderloin. Tenderloin Museum has been working with Michael Vong, Tenderloin Clubhouse Director at Boys and Girls Clubs San Francisco, to organize and convene this town hall to discuss how we can support and strengthen our AAPI community throughout the city, and in particular in the Tenderloin. It's the current broader movement to, stop Asian hate. There have been a slew of horrifying, very high-profile, violent attacks against Asian American seniors in San Francisco, and we wanted to convene some of the Tenderloin's community leaders, activists, organized to share some of their stories, share about their work in the neighborhood, as well as the resources offered through their respective organizations, especially with respect to just street safety in particular. We'll be hearing from, of course, Michael, Sue Han Chung from the Tenderloin Neighborhood Development Corporation, as well as the Tenderloin Chinese Rights Association, Justin Hu Lin, Director of Development and Communications of the Southeast Asian Development Center, Lillian Mark, Senior Director of Programs at Glide, Sarah Wan, Community Youth Center Executive Director, and Lena Miller and Ian Clark Johnson from Urban Alchemy, also Winnie Fan from Boys and Girls Club. Yeah, if you have any questions throughout all of this, I think we're going to kind of go in around, starting with Michael. Each person's going to talk for a few minutes about what they do here in the neighborhood. If you have any questions or topics you'd like to discuss, please drop it in the chat. Or in the Q&A panel at the bottom of the ribbon. And I think without further ado, Michael, you want to take it away?
Yeah, sounds good. So thank you, Alex. So my name is Mike. I'm the clubhouse director for the Boys and Girls Club of San Francisco here in the Tenderloin. I've been in this position for about 3 years now, but been in the Tenderloin for 6 years, and with Boys and Girls Club for over 20. Some of the work that I do here is obviously working with youth and really developing our next generation of young leaders, young advocates, and so on and so forth. But along the way, one thing became really clear to me is that we can have the amazing programs, we can have amazing mentors and opportunities. It doesn't quite mean anything if it doesn't feel safe enough in the neighborhood to get to our program. And so it became really, really important for me and our agency to be a part of several different conversations in the Tenderloin to ensure that safety became a high priority in terms of how we did our work and how we were able to operate. And it's beautiful for us to be working with and collaborating with so many different agencies. Many of them are on this call right now, like an SCADC, a Glide, an Urban Alchemy, a CYC, TNDC, so on and so forth. Um, and so, the work we do right now really is guiding our young people to be amazing people growing up, right? To be amazing citizens, to be amazing individuals, to really have heart and empathy for everyone that they come across. And hopefully along the way, we can create enough opportunities for them to really have a very enriching life. Um, Education, physical fitness, mental health, so on and so forth. Um, from there, I guess that's enough about me and some of the work that I do. I would love to kind of start going around to each individual and having the people from this panel really talk about some of the work that they do. So we'll start with Justin. Justin is the Director of Development and Communications for the Southeast Asian Development Center, SADC. Justin, as you introduce yourself, would love to hear about some of the work happening with SCADC in the Tenderloin, especially when we talk about the pivots that happened during COVID and some of the work that you guys are doing very specifically with our AAPI community.
Of course. Justin Nguyen, I actually recently joined SCADC back in December, but SCADC actually founded as a youth organization back in 1979 as a Vietnamese Youth Development Center, and we recently only expanded our vision and our scope to include the other Southeast Asian communities, such as the Khmer community, the indigenous community, and other Southeast Asians inside the city as well. Yeah, we primarily serve youth development, youth empowerment, families, economic success, and health and wellness. But something that we saw, especially during this COVID, was that the barriers that our community already goes through. I think about 1 in 4 Vietnamese who reside in San Francisco are not proficient in English, and with like the Khmer community and Laotian community, even like I think 1 in 3 don't have English proficiency, creating immense barriers in accessing services. So that required a lot of work for our staff to provide translation resources, like food access that was culturally relevant, and even like in-person learning locations. As many audiences know, inside the Tenderloin, a lot of these youth live inside housing that is highly dense and not exactly a conducive learning environment. So we work with the JD Marriott to create like a learning hub in person throughout the pandemic to facilitate youth learning, to provide a safe space, but also access to technology, and also staff who went through, really work with them for mental wellness, because this is a really, really tough time for youth and their families, being so far away from their peers. And I think, yeah, a lot of this work is coalition building is what I've been learning is such an important part, whether it is through Michael said, like the safety part, working for Urban Alchemy and TNDC and Tenderloin CBD is really important to provide hard access to services if people don't feel safe walking down the street. And also, we've been partnering with like NEMS and others for vaccine and COVID outreach as well. So really, this is what it's showing to me is that this is a work about partnerships and a community, that we are in this together, that we united as one in one community. So this has really been where we're at, and it's really privileged to be a part of this group. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Justin. And obviously, thank you, SCADC, for stepping in and stepping up in so many different ways. Next up, we'll have Lillian Mark, the Senior Director of Programs at Glide. Glide obviously has a large number of services and resources that we're providing to people in the Tenderloin who are desperately in need of it. One of the coolest things that happens is the relationship buildings and the way you guys, do crisis prevention and how we utilize that as a way to build community and build safety. Can you talk more about some of that work with the relationship building and crisis prevention?
Sure. Thank you, Mike. Hey, everyone. I'm Lillian. I'm Senior Director of Programs at Glide. I've been with Glide for 17 years now, not always in this position. I've worked directly with our safety team for several years, our domestic violence programs. And, currently I also see the meals team, but, harm reduction, drop-in services. And, Before the pandemic, obviously a lot of folks who came to visit Glide needed some sort of support, right? Whether it was a meal or clean syringes or to go to the women's support group. And our safety team wanted to make sure everything was accessible to everyone while maintaining safety for everyone. And so a lot of how we do this is, our team comes from the community that we're in, right, that we're working with. So some folks have relationships that precede their employment at Glide, right? Family, friends, people they grew up with. And then also just over time, we become community ourselves, right? And so, we build relationships as, people come through, and it's more than just a program participant kind of relationship. It's, hey, you're here, right? Like sometimes people don't even need anything. They just come by and say hi and we chit chat. And so, what I've always reminded, our teams about is that no one really has to do anything that we tell them to do or not to do. What may make the difference is how much they trust in you and the relationship to do something different in the moment, right? And so a lot of our crisis intervention is based on that relationship building. And sometimes, some staff have a better relationship with some people than others, and that's when we tag them in and we tag out. There are, I've encountered participants who don't want to talk to me because I'm female and they don't want a female telling them what to do, and so I have to work on that with my team, who can step in and try to get this person to hear what we're trying to tell them, right, to keep it safe. Sometimes it's really not safe enough for a person to come in to the building. And of course, with COVID, everything is outside, but we still try to get the service to them regardless, right? If you can't come in to get the meal, we'll bring the meal out to you. Can't come in and get your supplies, we'll call upstairs to the 5th floor, they'll run them out to you. We'll tell your case manager to step out and talk to you, right? Because you're just not in a good place to come in right now. During the pandemic, we closed down the 300 block of Ellis, which is where we're at, and we helped stand up the Tenderloin hub. And so Glide is also coordinating all the partners that are coming through, like the food bank that, they give out over 500 bags of groceries every Monday right outside of Glide. So we manage the street closure. We help them up with the setup, with the line management, the testing, on Tuesdays and Thursdays for COVID, and then now the vaccinations that we have on Thursdays, along with legal services are coming back, outdoors, events, our meals program. And, our safety team really keeps an eye out on making sure people can get to everything safely. What I've noticed with the team is that with the recent, violence around Asian Americans is that a lot of Asian seniors actually frequent our services as well as families. And so they just have a different kind of vigilance around it, right? We use a crisis prevention curriculum that's train the trainer that we send at least 2 staff to a 4-day training to train just to have some foundation around crisis de-escalation and communication skills. And then our team gets trained regularly around that. But, at the end of the day, it's whether or not I can go up to someone and say, hey, are you okay? And sometimes people's okay doesn't feel okay, to most people. There's one guy who was talking to himself really loud and sort of swinging, not swinging, but spinning like a 6-foot rod one day, right? And, me and my staff, we looked at him like, well, that's kind of his baseline, he doesn't actually ever hurt anybody, but that's kind of what he does. So we just have to stay away and keep safe, right? And keep other people away from him while he's in that state. And so there's just so many nuances, working the Tenderloin because everyone's showing up a little bit different every day. And depending on what you need, you may feel more, activated that day. And so it's a constant building of relationships to keep each other safe.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Lillian. I think a lot of people can definitely agree with, safety obviously is super, super important. And sometimes what we're perceiving, isn't always like the reality, right? Like sometimes we have to kind of like really pay attention to the small details. And we Boys and Girls Club used to be the master tenants at Bodecker, and I want to say that's definitely one of the early lessons I learned. Where sometimes I just had to watch and observe and realize that that's just who they are. If they're not harming anyone, if they're not hurting anyone, just leave it is. And we'll be able to check in. We'll find those resources if they want it. So, thank you very much for sharing that, Lillian. Um, Next up, we have Sarah from the Community Youth Center, CYC. She's the executive director. And CYC has been doing phenomenal work with, supporting those who've been harmed because of the violence and providing services and obviously a lot of other things that's in the wheelhouse for CYC right now. Can you talk about some of those services and what it's been like working directly with those who've been harmed by AAPI violence?
Thank you. Thank you, Michael, for your warm introduction. Yeah, I think for CYC, we are part of a collective that called Coalition on Community Safety and Justice. So we work closely with our community partner like Chinese for Affirmative Action, Chinese Progressive Association, and also Chinatown Community Development Center, and also New Bright Foundation. We founded the coalition last year, actually, right around when COVID starts. And we clearly see there's a major uptick of anti-Asian violence or hate incidents that happen. For CYC, for years, we've been working with high-risk youth who are involved with the system. And we also provide some victim support services throughout the year whenever we see there's a major incident or violence incidents that involve with victims that who are from the API community that has language barrier, or who have immigrants that who have a lot of challenge to navigate the system. But I think since last year, we've been working, like putting the team together aggressively to really provide the wraparound victim support services where that we can provide what we call like rapid response. We usually get referral from the police department, district attorney's office, and also sometimes actually directly from emergency room where the staff actually hand out our cards, our outreach information to victims who seems to be being having assault or has been attacked by violence that they might not have made police report, and they see that they might need help. Once we receive the contact information, we will actually immediately reach out to the victim. We'll find out what kind of languages that they need to, they are familiar with, and also which neighborhood they're in. We try to match them with a victim advocate or a community outreach staff who are from a similar culture or also speak the language to communicate with the victim or their families to see what kind of support they need. There are victims who might be hospitalized that we will need to help to reach out to a family to explain to them the situation, provide any support they might need, including like transportations, including like let them know that the different department, what role they play. Because when incident happen, usually either the victims or the family will be bombarded with like police officer, with like district attorneys, victim support services, sometimes with Department of Public Health or crisis response. So many people or even media will try to approach them. So we're trying to really explain to them about the different system, how to navigate through it, their rights, and sometimes we will help to respond. For example, if they want to stay low profile, they don't want any media coverage, we'll help them to actually let the media know to give the family some space. Some of the family might immediately worry about medical bills, worry about income loss. And also we will let them know what kind of compensation state program that might apply to them with the partnership with the DA's Office of Victim Support Services. We also let them know like if they have immediate financial crisis. We have been doing a lot of fundraising to raise funds for our victim support fund. So we will be able to actually provide immediate financial help to this victim. For example, let's say if they get their car stolen, they do not know what to do in terms of like transportation wise, or they might need to they have like some property loss, or some of them actually, when they discharge from the hospital, they need some caretaker to take care of the elder victims at home. They do not, there's a gap while they're applying for IHSS or Medi-Cal maybe, or other benefits, that they do not know how to pay the caretakers. We're trying to use that fund to support their needs right there, so that hopefully will give them some relief from the financial burden at that time. Some of them are also want to ask for legal support, so we'll also reach out to other partners, for example, like API Legal Outreach Services or like Asian Law Caucus, to reach out to the attorney who are able to provide service or some legal consultation to the victims. We also help to reach out to them, especially for elder victims, how to connect and work with the Adult Protective Services and also the HSA department. So we're really trying to look for to help them out in terms of navigate different systems and really provide them the support. And a lot of times, most importantly, is the mental health services that after they've been traumatized with, after the event, how can they actually can get mental health support services in language and with cultural competency. So we reach out to our partners like RAMS or Cameron House or other mental health partners in the community that can provide them a helping hand or provide them support or therapeutic services. So there's a lot of things that the victims have to face at that critical moment, and we hope to provide the wraparound service to being there for them. So we have been providing service since like February, on a regular basis. So far, for the last 5 months, we already have more than 25 cases already in San Francisco that we're dealing with and provide support to. So it has been a lot of quick learning ground from us for our victim advocates as well, to learn all the different systems and how to work together to develop a coordination plan for each of the victims. But we're really grateful with all the community partners that reach out, and also city department that work closely in partnership with us to make it much easier for us to establish the system.
Thank you so much, Sarah, and CYC, obviously, for all the amazing work. And I think some of the key things I definitely heard was, wraparound services. When something happens, it's not just I need one thing. There's like several things that's happening, whether it's dealing with the traumas of the event, dealing with the financial portion of it. One of the things that really stuck out to me, and it's kind of been said a few different times in different ways already, but translation is so important. Like, a lot of people take for granted the fact that, we speak English as well as we do, that we read English as well as we do. And then all of a sudden you have to read a contract, and imagine being someone where English is not your primary language, and you have to read this like 4-page document or find a special website or, things like that. And if you don't have someone sometimes guiding you or even helping translate, because not everything is in the language you speak, that whole process becomes hard. And now imagine what wraparound services look like if you don't even have the language support to do it with. So thank you, Sarah and CYC, so much for all that amazing work that's happening already. Next up, we have Winnie. Winnie is our high school services coordinator with me at the Boys and Girls Club here in the Tenderloin. But she's also a youth that grew up in the Tenderloin. She's someone that worked with kids that still live in the Tenderloin. Her parents and grandparents still live in the Tenderloin. So her roots still very, very Tenderloin. And so Winnie, would love to hear a little bit about your experience about growing up in the Tenderloin, kind of how you look at things now that you're an adult in the Tenderloin in today's current climate. And then if you can, maybe even connect it to how you're doing work with kids.
All right. Well, like Mike said, my name is Winnie Fan. I grew up all my life in the Tenderloin, 29 years, just this Sunday. So happy belated birthday to myself. Yes, I grew up in the Tenderloin. As I compare it to now as an adult, I would say it's exactly the same. Homelessness is still the same, less gang violence. There's a lot of still, hate violence going on. It hasn't changed. Asians are still getting attacked since Vincent Chan. Just do a little research back then. But growing up, it was still a neighborhood where I knew it was my home. I am not afraid to walk out my house, but I do fear for my grandparents and my aunts and uncles, because not only due to COVID, but it's just the safety of the matter. It's thanks to urban alchemy, I do feel like more confident in when they do go to the farmers market, shopping, the simple things. But if it's anything else, I would say, growing up, uh, there's different times you get to hang out with your friends, the neighborhood, you get to walk across the street and feel safe. Now it's just a whole different world, because there are many things that you fear for besides diseases and whatever's going on in the world. There's also like streets that have no turn red signs, and cars still do that. Um, Fearing that your grandparents don't make it home because they forget the way home. Um, as I grow into the adult that I am now, I worry more because easily explaining to the teens that I work with now, from a youth to an adult, it's different because they didn't have to worry about getting home safe at night by a certain time. They don't have to worry about guns and bullets going through your house. And police station. It wasn't there back then. It didn't exist until maybe I was 10. Um, but yeah, I had to explain gang violence, um, homelessness, and how that now the homelessness is not created by just people wanting to hang out on the streets. Is because shelters aren't open. There are no spaces for people to live in, literally. So I guess it goes into what I do as a living now. um, I want to help people. That's why I chose to come back to work with youth who has been in my shoes, and I've been in those exact pair of shoes and socks. I know what they're going through. I know what they live through. I know what it's like to be in a cramped space, trying to figure out what's the next meal, trying to figure out who's the next family member to go visit. Um, yeah, nowadays we just try to live day by day, but also advocate for them, show them what life is through virtual lenses, but also I provide job readiness programs with them through my YEEP, Spotlight, OFA. I may still be young, and I get, um, you know, uh, mistaken as a teenager all the time. Oh, you're in high school. Where are you going? I'm like, no, I'm actually a staff. They're with me. They're totally fine. Why are you so short? I'm just Asian. That's just me. But a lot of times it's really funny, trying to just make it a safer space, but also trying to be that staff they can relate to. And it's not just a job. I come to work because it's what I do. I love what I do. I think that's it. Did I get everything?
Yeah, there's a follow up from
Oh,
Kate, but we'll get to that later. Let me
all
get
right,
through
great.
the introductions, and then I'll get to the questions. But I think one of the things you're kind of hearing from Winnie as well is things that we gotta remember is that the violence, that the hate has been around for a really long time. It's just really been accentuated. It's really been publicized and out in the open much more during this pandemic than ever before, right? And the documentation of it is off the charts, and it's important because we should be documenting it. If we didn't document these things, then their stories go untold, right? And it's not just AAPI. We know that African Americans and Native Americans, and the list kind of goes on and on. There's been a lot of violence, a lot of hate, and a lot of systematic racism that has really stopped folks from advancing. And so, putting light to it, like doing a town hall like this one, is really important. So, Winnie, thank you very much for sharing your insight and knowledge. Um, and then last but definitely not least, we have Lena Miller, the executive director for Urban Alchemy, and Ian Clark Johnson, who's the director of Urban Alchemy, but overseeing the Civic Center, the UN Plaza, safe sleeping sites, main library. I think the list kind of goes on and on. Ian might have a twin that none of us know about because it seems like there's a lot of stuff going on in his role and responsibility. Um, but for folks who do not know, Urban Alchemy has been amazing in the Tenderloin, amazing at UN Plaza. They are practitioners who are supporting safety in the Tenderloin and really providing not just safety, but also cleanliness. So you can see a lot of them walking around, ensuring that spaces are clean. Folks, hopefully everyone here understands that there is a good correlation between cleanliness and safety. most people do not feel safe in places that are amazingly dirty. Think about a friend's house that you've been to that the guy never cleans. You're probably not even feeling good there sitting in the chair, right? So imagine your streets feeling the same way. And Urban Alchemy has been amazing around public safety, along with service programs. They employ people who are in situations where they need that job, and they're getting job training and really transformative work and feeling good to be a part of the community doing something positive. Um, Lena, would love to kind of hear, where this vision kind of came from, and how you see Urban Alchemy really shifting the narrative on what public safety looks like.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you for the shouts out, Justin and Winnie. It means the world to us. It really does. So Urban Alchemy was founded in 2018. It was a spinoff from the Hunters Point family. I was the founded Hunters Point family when I was 23. I'm from Hunters Point, third generation San Franciscan, so Winnie, I caught that old school San Francisco flavor, a lot of, it's in short supply these days, but definitely San Francisco has an essence to it, So basically it kind of started with the pit stops. We took on the pit stops because we were looking for work for our folks, and what we found was this whole kind of other world, right, of what was really going on amongst unsheltered people and in the Tenderloin, and primarily who we prioritize for hiring. I just want to say Urban Alchemy, most people don't know. They think, oh, they work, they do their homeless organization, or they, public. We're a workforce development agency. That's our primary what we do. We just happen to be really good at this. And that's because we prioritize hiring people with lived experience, specifically former long-term offenders and folks that have lived experience with homelessness. So long-term offenders is a term that's used for a former lifer. So people who had life sentences and have done the work and a lot of work in order to come home. As you can imagine, the stress that people must feel, not only being in prison, but decades in prison, and then having to really change your life there. So what a lot of our people come home with, this amazing emotional intelligence, and that is the ability to read situations, which you described, Michael. Like, is a person, are they dangerous, or are they just kind of having an episode and doing their own thing, and in fact, you may be the danger. So we started out with toilets. We were asked to expand and expand and expand, the cleaning to parks, and then eventually safety and service. And when COVID happened, shelter in place, no other providers would come out and do the hotels or the safe sleep villages. So we said, our folks, I think what is unique about Urban Alchemy is because people are coming home, and not only, and is there a lot of expression of remorse about whatever their original crime is and kind of having to balance the scales, but also a real need to be valued and respected by society, so there's this whole other level of motivation. And so when shelter in place and all these things hit, people were like, we'll do it, let's go, which is why you saw so many of our folks out there, particularly when COVID hit. And so really what we try to do is wherever there's a need, and specifically what we pride ourselves in is 5-star service for vulnerable populations. So BART is one of our contracts, which was started by the ADA, ADA lawsuit. People who were in wheelchairs and who had other disabilities were being attacked in the BART. Can you imagine being robbed and beat up while you're in a wheelchair? Children, a lot of children in the Tenderloin, as it's unsafe. You have not only the highest percentage of children, but also the highest percentage of sexual offenders, in the Tenderloin. We have stopped many molestations and even, professional kidnappings, for child trafficking. So, really, when we experience the impact of the Asian violence, because not only, were our practitioners there with two of the high profile events and, broke it up and assisted the victim and got help, but one of our practitioners was attacked, and so it was like, it's for us, it's on another level. We're like, what do we need to do? Which is why we're like, okay, let's get safe passes for families. Let's make sure the elders know that we're here. Let's make sure that we have a lot of Vietnamese practitioners. Let's make sure we make that connection. And so we're really trying, to beef that up and be a really strong resource and ally to the AAPI community, and just to make sure, everyone in the Tenderloin is safe. People, a lot of times they look at the folks on the street who are talking to themselves or swinging a 6-foot stick, and they're like, but those are the people, if we look at the statistics, who are hurt most often. And so Urban Alchemy really tries to make sure that all vulnerable populations are protected. And a lot of our guys are putting their lives out there on the line. But I'll stop talking and hand it over to Ian, because he's actually the tactical parts of it. How we move, I think, is very important. And he can talk about our strategies to develop safe space in walking.
Thank you, Lena. And I want to say I'm very grateful to be here this evening, grateful in partnership. For us, it's about building relationships. Again, I love how Michael kind of laid it out, that general association of a clean, safe, and being a safe space. And that's where it starts for us, just going out there, building those relationships and cleaning up and putting that honest effort and trying to encourage sort of cooperation in the community, because it's got to be done in partnership. Neighbor to neighbor, person to person, organization to organization. It just has to be done in collective, right? It's got to be cooperation. And so for us, we're really reaching out. Lena talked about, we have a lot of AAPI practitioners. So specifically being real attentive right now to translation, what was spoke on, I believe Sarah spoke on, of having some practitioners strategically placed to where, we can have those conversations, as well as even most recently training some of our practitioners in the translation app, being in Mandarin, and being able to make that connection, because the biggest thing is the misconception. We don't want to be, misconceived. We want to come off and be able to have that conversation with people, but also let people know we are here for safety and service to everyone. We will help you walk across the street. The fact that Winnie speaks on in Civic Center Plaza, which is so near and dear to our heart, UN Plaza, to the farmers market, we keep an eye. Keep an eye on any elder, and there's a lot of elders, especially Asian right now. Unfortunately, during these times, we just have to do that. And so for us, it's about building those relationships with the community, and the mask almost a detriment. I'm happy. Like yesterday, it felt good. I pulled my mask down for the first time, because we're able to smile. It's a lot different when you see a smiley face as you see a masked face. And so the biggest thing for us right now, and sort of our strategy moving out, is just to build those relationships and sort of offer. We're stepping up our game and our outreach and resources, because we are, trying to create, we're cooperating in safe passes and trying to assist, and we're doing the work, and the work is being done, and it's looking better out there. But for us, it's important that we're helping people along the way, and we're helping them find housing and sort of solutions to some of the issues of our community. So I'll wrap it up there. I know we have a lot of questions, but again, very grateful for the partnership and to be here. Thank everyone this evening for the work we do in the community.
Awesome. Thank you, Lena, and thank you, Ian. And again, I'll say it again, the work of Urban Alchemy has been phenomenal, amazing, very needed. We wish we could figure out how to do it all throughout the Tenderloin, and I keep hearing all these things about, like, how do we do it on this block? And I'm just like, we're trying to figure it out. It's going to take a while before we can get the same kind of services everywhere. And so we are definitely grateful for all the places you are now, and for the contracts that are already available. And so thank you very much. I don't know if someone said this to you two before, but I work at 201 Turk. That's where my main office is, and it's the largest, I believe, family mixed use building in the Tenderloin, and I've heard residents say this is the most amount of peaceful sleep they've had in a really, really long time, and that's due to the amazing work of Urban Alchemy. So thank you guys very, very much. So this is the Q&A portion of today's town hall. And so attendees, feel free to continue to use the chat or the Q&A section. We'll definitely get to them as soon as we can. I actually want to ask this first one that was specifically for Winnie. So the question is, can you describe the youth's role in the formation of Tenderloin Safe Passage? So for those of you who are unaware, Safe Passage is a program that is also inside a part of the Tenderloin Community Benefit District. They do work inside the parks. They are safety practitioners as well during after school time and before school time. During the summer times, they've been helping programs get to the park and several other safety related topics. And so, Winnie, can you talk about how youth played a role in this formation of Safe Passage?
So back in 2010, when I was still in my YEEP, we needed to create a kind of safe walk program to get the kids out of our space so we can utilize our space for tea night, but also watch movies. So it was generally for our own guilty pleasure, but also it was to get the kids home at night because their parents were either still watching their younger siblings or they were still at work. They couldn't make it home. We contributed to it originally as a safe walk, just to walk the kids home. And we were teenagers. We were just walking together, walking these kids home. Safe Passage took that and turned it into a foundation where they, alongside a lot of people who wear these like now orange and teal vests, where they walk kids across the street wearing holding stop signs. Because again, I bring up red signs that says don't turn on red. They still do it. They still do it anyways. I've seen it. It happened today at Bodecker, crossing the street with 18 teenagers. Had to tell them that this happens. Make sure you watch out left and right. But yeah, Safe Passage, they allow groups of adults that help nurture and guide teens, youth, adults, elderlies all across the street throughout the Tenderloin. They work from morning to, I believe, 7 p.m. There are times they're just not even working and they will still walk someone across the street. So that is how it kind of got started. Yeah, young Winnie, president of Keystone Club at the Tenderloin Clubhouse back in 2010.
Thank you, Winnie. And for those of you curious about the work of Safe Passage, you can definitely check out the tlcbd.org website. They are supporting seniors. They're part of Safe Routes to School, so on and so forth. And so, again, amazing program, lots of amazing programs here in the Tenderloin. Next question, and this is open to the full panel, so anyone that would like to jump in, feel free to unmute yourself. But the question is, how can youth organizations or individuals support the community? And I guess in this, because of the conversation, it's in relation to the AAPI community.
I guess I could give a very brief answer. For Community Youth Center, our goal or our mission is really to uplift the young people's voice. So last year, we actually have a group of youth leaders develop a curriculum called Know Your Classmates. And one of the lesson plan has been focused on Stop AAPI Hate and Violence. And it's a free toolkit for teachers nationwide. And so far, we have over 1,000 schools in the United States has signed up to receive that free curriculum for the teachers to actually use it to really convey racial equity and also definitely about racism and discrimination issues and how young people can actually put that into action plan and do the personal project that focus on these issues. I could put the link on the chat for everybody so you can have access to it. And we also have the young people to join as panelists to make recommendations to school district as well as actually all the way to the state level, to the superintendent, voice their need. When school reopen, the young people hope to see that it's a better reporting system in the school district, that they feel more comfortable and provide a safe space for young people to talk about racial justice and equity issues. They also suggest that to have affinity group within the school to promote like racial harmony and, and also the cultural pride within the school, to also do multicultural partnership type of projects. And so a lot of solutions actually coming from the young people, and they will be our next generation leaders. And I think that's something very important that we all support them to do.
Thank you, Sarah. And Xander would definitely appreciate if you provided the link in the chat if you had a moment. And I definitely wanted to highlight the concept of youth voice, right? Youth voice, youth leadership, youth advocacy. When we teach them really, really young, they become young adults who become advocates and want to see change happen that turn into policymakers, legislation makers, and people who are hopefully going to help steer our country into continually more progressive and more, right ways of doing things. So thank you, Sarah. Anyone else want to jump in? How can youth organizations or individuals support the community? I guess what I would say is, in terms of individuals, the concept of letting someone else mention something just isn't going to be enough anymore. I think for everyone to feel comfortable with, if something doesn't look right, if something doesn't feel right, we should probably be saying something at that point. And it could be as easy as calling 911 if it feels like it's violent. It could be recording. That seems to be the big thing. And we know from the Breonna from the oh man, what court case was that? But yeah, recording seems to be a really big thing right now, and that's how we continue to document. And so I think individuals, if you see something that just doesn't look like it's right, it's probably not right, and it's worth saying something. Next question for the whole panel, and again, anyone can unmute themselves. How do you make sure you are doing okay, right? This work can be very traumatic for us as individuals and for those on the ground level doing the work. How do we make sure you as an individual are doing okay? What are the mechanisms for your well-being in this type of work?
I'll respond to that. I don't know if I have an answer that's affirmative. I think we struggle with that. I remember I got permission from a guy. We had done a revival, our overdose, and it was super intense. And I put it up, he was like, man, use that video for whatever. You saved my life. Like, and so we put it up. And my intention was to show that our guys, and we've done over 600 in the last year, right? Not only Narcan reversals, but people who have heart attacks, all kind of conditions, right? Our guys have responded to them and saved their lives using CPR and first aid. So that's what we say when we say reversals are kind of brought them back, not just attended to someone who fell down. And they're really intense. And to show when you see our people because some people can kind of look at us as muscle, like, no, they're doing like paramedic work, and to be recognized for the work that they're doing, because people don't seem to talk about that a lot. And I remember just the nastiness on Twitter, like, oh, you're exploiting people, and oh, that was so traumatic for me to see. And it's like, yeah, how do you think we feel? We have people on our staff who, like Louis, who a lot of who's numbered in the hundreds of reversals. We had a practitioner supervisor who's out there in the Tenderloin, who I'm sure you all know, who had a nervous breakdown because of the intensity of it all. It is tough. you know, but instead it feels like, you know, that's why it meant so much to me, you know, to get the recognition from folks on the panel, because it seems like, at least at my level, it's like constant complaints, you know, oh, your guys didn't have on masks, or they look mean, or somebody was rude to me. And it's just like, you know, attack after attack after attack, and not really realizing, like, we're human beings. You know, we're trying the best we can. We're a brand new organization. Like, we're really, really trying hard to do this work, and it's extremely difficult work, and it's extremely difficult on our people. I don't want to minimize that at all. I'm grateful to them every day for the situations they put themselves in, and for people to understand that that kind of work takes something out of you, right? It's not just automatic. I wish that we had therapists and all kinds of support. We don't have support for the bare minimum, is the truth. And so where is that going to come from? You know, as the CEO, I kind of feel like people want, they expect. Urban Alchemy has to be perfect. Oh, I have a problem, Urban Alchemy, but not really understanding, like, how hard it is on us. And so I guess what I'm saying is, I wish, I see Ian shaking his head, I'm gonna let him speak to that too. But I'm a psychologist, right? I am a psychologist, doctor in psychology, a real one, you know, and where do we get the help? I don't know. And I think it's not just us, like, we're in there dealing with stuff, but this is stuff that folks who live in the Tenderloin see every single day. Those children see every single day. So what does it do to children who have to walk by these things every single day? Because it incorporates into their psyche. It becomes who they are in their reality. And I'm not sure what we do about this, but I know it's something that's way underfunded, under-resourced, and very few people are thinking about. So I thank you for the question, Kate, because it's an important question.
And I'll just add to that, and I know it's imperative to our longevity. And I think that that's, so we're out there, and we talked about sort of the strategy and building those relationships and taking times like this to really connect. And I think it truly just highlights how it's really going to take a collaborative effort. Like, we're out there, we need the support, having a trauma-informed lens, and that's for all neighbors that we engage in the community, but also for ourselves, right? Having a trauma-informed lens and understanding a reversal, an Narcan reversal, and we've done up to 2 or 3 a day in one location, and how important it is for us just to take the time and debrief with our team and sort of let some of that stuff out and exhaust. So we're really trying to utilize those moments to connect and then be kind. I mean, we talk about be kind to the community, but also reminding the teammates to be kind to ourselves as well. Every interaction is not going to be the most positive, and we're learning on a day-to-day basis. So just continue to have that trauma-informed lens and be kind, and giving ourselves and our teammates in the community spaces to talk and process and let it out. So for us, that's important.
Yeah, thank you, Lena, and thank you, Ian. Yeah, I couldn't imagine what it's like to do that high intensive work on a consistent basis and have that be the majority of your day. And so definitely, you know, I we definitely appreciate just how much you guys put into all of this. Does anyone else want to jump in?
I'll say a quick note. Dealing with teens and also like just community workers, we tell everybody we are not, we're not full of magic. We're healers of the community. We don't just, it's not coming out from just random. We want to work on a revolution to revitalize, to rejuvenate authentic movement, care to our youth, to the families and community. But it's working towards wellness and joy. So we have to remind ourselves we are human. So what we tell our teens and kids is to communicate. Always talk, even if you don't want to. Talk when you're angry, talk when you're sad, and talk when you're happy. It's all about communication.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I have to add is really like, not just us providers, it's also for us to talk to the policymakers and the people in power, provide funding for us. We all do so much great work on the ground, and but there's always more resources to be had, and also to work on some more systemic issues, whether it's mental health or affordable housing or access to opportunity or entrepreneurship and capital for our minority-owned businesses. These are such important parts of creating safe streets and safe communities, right? It's not just us, working with people coming through our doors, but it's really creating a thriving and sustainable and vibrant community out in the streets of Tenderloin that we know that this community has. We have such wonderful people here, and we want to do our best to empower them. And the city simply has to have a more concrete, coherent strategy to make that happen. And it's up to us and our advocates and allies to really make sure that we constantly knock on their doors and push them to do better, to be better for us. As Winnie said, and for people who be long-term San residents, these issues predate us. They predate our parents in many cases. And the fact that the city simply hasn't made progress in the way that we want is a failure in the systems that exist. So it's really important for us to constantly be there, because that's what really makes our job easier in the end, and make our job is eventually to hopefully less people seek our services in the end, right? That our community is able to be able to find opportunities and stability without us. And I think that's really what we want to do. And it's really make sure that whoever the mayor is, whoever takes over for D6 or whatever, and even for county and state resources to make sure that this happens. Because we know that SF is a regional place for a lot of people. So make sure that we have thought throughout that.
Yeah, the Tenderloin definitely has had many struggles for decades at this point. So what that really means is there's generational trauma, and there are community traumas that needs to be addressed. And so it can't be done by accident, and it can't be done without the right resources, especially things like funding and bringing in the organizations needed in order to support those who are doing the direct line work. I think the term or the line is who guards the guardians, right? Who supports those who support others, and this is definitely a situation of how do we support one another, and how do we support ourselves in this kind of work. We can't do it by ourselves. Like, it's going to take a lot of other efforts to make that happen. 2 minutes left, Alex. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we can probably wrap it up.
Actually, there is that question from Ethan.
Yeah.
Around breaking. So the question is, does anyone know who is breaking the windows of all the places on Larkin Street whose signage shows that they are Asian owned? And so I'm not too sure if anyone has information on that. That one definitely seems a little tougher for this population, for this panel. I think the best thing we might be able to do is maybe bring it up with Captain Canning at the police station to see if he has some better information. But that does spark, again, another thought around, are people vandalizing Asian owned businesses? So is it just not the physical violence or the robberies, but are we now also harming businesses? I'm sorry, Lena, I saw you unmute yourself.
I was just going to say, there's like 17 cameras for every square inch of the Tenderloin. So I'm sure that that it's on camera.
We'll check into that too. Thank you, Lena. I'm sorry, Alex, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say, I think that's a great place to kind of wrap it up. I thank you all for being here and participating in this discussion. I think, it's so wonderful to hear from each individual person and organization. And, Lana and Ian, I appreciate you being here. Urban Alchemy has been a marked change in the neighborhood. If just in terms of like just people, I think when we were emailing, I was saying, you guys kind of are the eyes of the street. You do some of the work that maybe some other programs do, but it's like times 10. And you guys are there all the time, and you have the villages and stuff, and that has been a market change. And I think, it highlights how some of these, systemic issues, generational issues are, even when you throw a whole new organization in it full of people who want to make a change, you have the manpower in a way. I mean, it's incredibly challenging and taxing and draining, and yeah, I mean, the resources are needed. So maybe, I don't know, it kind of begs the question to where, like, what, for people that maybe like live or work or spend a lot of time in the Tenderloin, no matter who you are, like, what are some ways that, like, anybody could maybe help that layer of presence on the street, specifically, I'm thinking specifically in my head for AAPI seniors, because I mean, I see it happen all the time where, yeah, you can say something, you can record something, you can report it. Things fall in a wide sort of category, but maybe to kind of close, whether it's through Urban Alchemy or people who are here or associated through TNDC or TLCBD, like, are there, what would you point someone to who is looking for a resource with regards to maybe like de-escalation or something that, like culturally sensitive de-escalation, something that maybe, because they're not, the situations are not always black and white sometimes, but it's important to make sure that nobody, gets hurt. Does anybody have any, I don't know, like resource or class, or I know TLCBD has done them in the past. I want to say TLCBD has done them in the past, and there might not be any in the books at present. Obviously, nobody is here representing TLCBD specifically, but
we are starting to do trainings, but I would just say in terms of safety, one of the things we're working on with the expansion is to make sure all over the Tenderloin, at least one side of the street, people can walk on safely. So we know there's a lot of people selling drugs, doing, whatever it's like, okay, go on that side of the street so everyone else can kind of pass. So that's one thing. The other thing we're working with Judy Young and Sarah is to really try to introduce our practitioners to the community, so they see us and they can just come up to us, even if there is a language barrier, and just grab someone's arm and say, walk with me. We do that all the time. Like, we have guests that we know who live in the SROs who are blind or who are in wheelchairs, or even people have written to us on our website saying somebody is harassing me every morning. They're calling me names. And so now we meet them at the bus stop and we walk with them. So I think, at least for our part, we want people to feel more comfortable coming up to us and not just kind of walking past us, but also to know that we're good with walking with them. We're whatever we need to do is just, we're trying to be of service to the community, and there's a lot more to do, and we're really trying to develop strategies to do that. But I would say for de-escalation, you kind of got to be careful, because our people, they're kind of, they have a lot of years of learning how to do that. And emotion, if you don't really know what you're doing, you can make a situation worse, especially if a person isn't in their right mind. Usually also, there's a whole lot of us, as you know. So if somebody is not in their right mind, there's other people around. I don't know. Ian, you...
It's tricky. I mean, definitely time and distance. I mean, that's like the number one principle of de-escalation, just time and distance. But to kind of just build on what Lena is saying, I know we're up against time. I mean, again, I'm gonna go back to just community, right? Making connections. I think stopping and saying hello as we're coming out of this pandemic, sort of having a united front of, hey, we are on this side of community. And it starts with simple introductions and making those connections and shaking hands and hugs or whatever it is in the community. And I believe, at least I would like to believe, that we could build a positive momentum, as a community, and sort of draw that line of where we're at together, and sort of inherently change the energy of the spaces we're in. So I am with that.
Yeah, and I want to give a quick shout out to what Teresa put in the chat. Shout out Teresa from the Mariac Academy right here on Golden Gate Avenue. The ihollerback.org website. They have a bystander intervention workshop that they do virtually, I think, every month. And it's a really good one that anyone can register for. I'm sorry, go ahead, Lillian.
Um, I think even like working with our teams, I always tell the staff, like, I don't want you guys to get hurt, right? Like Lena said, like de-escalation is a really tricky thing, right? Mm-hmm. And so if someone is really activated, don't crowd them. Create a path of exit for them, encourage them to exit on their own. Like, if they're trying to approach someone or they're getting into it with someone, if you can de-escalate the other person and get them to walk away, that may de-escalate the situation, right? But don't ever put yourself in harm's way, right? Sometimes the safest way may be to help the person evade the situation. And I know that doesn't always feel good because it doesn't always personally feel like justice. But at the end of the day, like we're trying to stay in this in the long run, and I tell the team, if you get hurt, you may not be able to come back to the community and do what you love, right? And so we also have to keep that in mind as well.
Wise words. I think if we don't have any more questions, this might be a good place to sign off. Michael, thank you so much. Winnie, Ian, Lena, Sarah, Justin, Lillian, really appreciate you all being here. Come visit the Tenderloin Museum if you're in the neighborhood. Check out each of these organizations. Their websites are linked on our event description in our website. If you want to get involved or support in some way, there's ways to do that for each of them. Thank you all for being here so much. Appreciate it. Appreciate the work you do. And we will see you down the line. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody.